looking. I'm
That's
sitting in the
right.
dark.
That's right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. This is the NGSC Sports, I want to say weekly, but political show. It is united, not divided, where we meet on common ground. We talk about everything, of course, that we can that's going on in Washington, the United States, abroad, politics, politicians, and more importantly, we want to use some common sense here, okay? There's two sides. Stop with right side, stop with the left side, stop with the blaming and all this shit. Let's talk about what's important first and foremost. Of course, remember the website. It is ndscsports.com, where we never stop. Catch all your current content there. Blah, 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 blah. Although John Doucette did put up a great article. He covered a community event with the Boston Fleet, the professional women's hockey league team that we are honored to cover there. And three of the ladies, the players, went out to the community in Lowell to meet with a junior little girl hockey team. Can't imagine the look on those little girls' faces hanging out with the professional players that play there. So good job, John. Great look. That story's up, of course, on ndscsports.com. I got a little something up there. I write every once in a while. Well, then more on ndscsports.com, where we never stop the co-host to hear the lady of the house, Lori. Hi, Lori.
Good evening, Ralph. You're looking quite spiffy there. I
I
like your
heard that.
shirt. And
I
hi,
heard
Glenn.
that. I heard that from the coach. I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to do this more often. I may have to eventually upgrade, I don't know, to a suit or something. Nah, just kidding. Get out of here. And of course, the man of the house, the coach. What's up, coach?
We'll find out.
Look, this is back to when this started 9 years ago as attack on the political. One of the things that my cousin Ruben and I would say over and over again, even before the election, and Donald Trump won the election, they should be plenty to talk about. And we said that really from experience from our childhood in New York City and how Trump always keeps shit going. It's good at stirring the pot. So now here we are, 2025, 9 years later, and I can say it again. Yeah, coach, you're right. Well, we'll see what's going on. Something always going on, right? Listen, first things first. We want to make sure, again, we get away from what doesn't work for the Democrats, that's for sure. Trying to get that message across. You got to give Donald Trump his due, okay? You don't like that he's bucking the system. No. I mean, Constitution is there for a reason. Laws are there for a reason. He's bent some, and according to laws, he's broken a couple in the first 6 weeks or so of his presidency. Question's going to be now when the Supreme Court has started with one decision, I think, or two. They're bypassing the appeals. He knows how to do that, by the way. Bypass appeals, go to Supreme Court. You see, you notice how the Supreme Court is really quick on, again, I don't want to attack, right? Common sense. But common sense means you also tell the truth. That H-1 visa not supposed to be down there, people. It's just supposed to tell the truth. But common sense is also, come on. How the Supreme Court seems to be, they come up with really quick. They work quick on some of this stuff, right? And now that stuff we really need to know gets stretched out a long period of time. But anyway, we're going to talk about several things this evening. We're going to talk about DOGE. The claims, because it's always a claim until you can prove it, the claims of the savings. Where are they? Where are they coming from? How much is being saved? How much is actually being saved? Other stories behind that. The wall of receipts on the website, which showed you the receipt. where the money, something happened though to that wall. We'll talk about it. DOGE is an outfit. It's a team. It's a team of people. It's a team of employees. And about two dozen of them basically said, "How do I say this? Fuck this." We'll talk about that too. Buyer's remorse. Town halls are talking a lot. We'll talk about that backlash from constituents, deportation, immigration. You saw it on the screen. H-1 visas, the funding bill. And for all of you that love these three words, we're going to talk Russia, Russia, Russia. So we get it started, right? DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, headed by Elon Musk and
excuse me,
that Ramaswamy. Oh no, he was gone before. He was gone before the right. He was gone before the gate opened up. Right.
day one.
Yeah, he was gone. Led by Elon Musk. The department guys, Coach. It is set. Now, Coach, you tell me what's DOGE, Coach? What the fuck does DOGE? What do they do?
You know, basically with their concept of government efficiency, it's an organization outside the government that has been allowed to access, governmental records, including, people, personnel, the financial budgets, all this information that is available. The concept is great, right? I mean, let's be realistic with the concept of government efficiency. We all know both sides, extreme right, extreme left, in anything in between those. We all know that the government is not efficient, that there's a lot of government waste. And if it even doesn't approach fraud, there's plenty of waste. So to have an organization outside the government is a little sketchy, but to have an organization of concepts of going after the fraud and going after the waste and stuff like that, it's not a bad thing. But that's what we had with the inspector generals, right? The inspector generals were supposed to be overseers of this kind of, actions and things like that. The problem is that there probably wasn't a strong enough workforce to oversee each department. You're talking hundreds of thousands of employees, millions and trillions of dollars being spent. This is something that would take more than 14 inspector generals and a bunch of foot workers. The interesting thing though is I don't think that Elon Musk is actually the head of DOGE. They came out and made a statement that this woman, and I can't remember her name, so I won't even try, is actually the top person in DOGE. Elon Musk is basically what Ivanka and Jared Kushner were to Trump in his first term. He's a advisor at this level. That's what he's been named as. But I think we can all clearly see that he's not only leading the DOGE project, but he's also leading America.
I have to say about that woman, she's on vacation. She's on vacation and she made no statement about being the lead for DOGE. So how are things still happening there if she's leading it, but she's not even in the country at this point?
Well, business can run by itself.
Yeah,
I just think they threw her name out there.
You're probably right.
Because
right. As a matter of fact, there was a good report today. I saw it. Sorry to cut you off. I forgot her name too. I heard it and saw it. It was a good report about her. Not sure the network. I could have saw it on a favorable network. I don't remember that either. But everything looked good. But yes, listen, DOGE, of course, the other thing about DOGE, which is important, is DOGE's job is to find government waste and inefficiency to save a lot of money. And by the way, anybody who thinks that the government doesn't waste money, you haven't heard the stories about the $12 screws and $3,500 toilets, okay? And obviously I made up those numbers, but Basically, it's what you hear, right? And what we've seen on documents and other stories. But anyway, and it's okay. The thing is that there's ways to go about this, right? You have a Republican president. By the way, Laura, I wanted to say I agree with you that Elon Musk, that was a smokescreen.
Yes.
Because the idea, I believe, here is, remember, Elon Musk doesn't have an official cabinet position. He doesn't have a Senate confirmed. What?
He doesn't even have a fucking seat at the table.
Right.
He don't even have a fucking
idea.
seat at the table.
That's the idea, Coach.
But he's running that fucking meeting.
Yeah.
I'm with you. But he does. That's what it is officially. He doesn't have a title. He doesn't have anything. Listen, we know better, okay? He's running DOGE. You don't stand up there and do what he's doing. You don't have a position of authority. You want to call him a special, whatever it is, envoy, counselor, whatever they call it, shit. Advisor, fine. But
that meeting was nothing but a performative show for us. Make it look like they were doing something.
But what did they sell? They sold Donald Trump sleeping at the fucking table while Elon Musk stood over the entire room, dressed entirely different from the rest of the room. The rest of the room is all in business attire. He's standing there in his whole all black fucking stuff with his black hat and shit like that. I mean, come on. This guy is rogue and is in charge. It's that simple.
And he's lying. He's lying when he said
Donald Trump sleeping though.
Hold on. Devil's advocate.
No.
Devil's advocate. Coach, when you get home field advantage, right? You get home field advantage. It's your field, your locker rooms, your school. So I'm assuming you have input on how things are done. And if they give you even more input, you're gonna give more input. And if all of a sudden the school looks at you and says, you know what, Coach, shit, just whatever you want to do, Coach, just fucking do it. Go ahead. Well, you're a good guy, but you're going to do it because, well, you're telling me I can do it. Well, if you're the richest man in the fucking world, and the president of the United States tells you basically, I didn't hear this, people, and I'm not going to tell you that I read it somewhere. I'm just making this shit up, parody, thinking out loud. Says to you, hey, you got a fucking plan? I got a plan. How do we make this shit work? What do you got to do? What? Yeah, do what you got to do. Fuck it. The president of the United States. This is not like an American citizen that grew up here that knows the history of the United States. The guy's from fucking South Africa. I mean, ever heard of apartheid? Ever heard about the shit that went on over there? You want to look back at Elon's family tree and see how it worked out for them? Keep going back. There's history.
Listen, he's the equivalent of a cotton plantation owner in America. His family owned mines, and they put those South Africans to work in the mines. No different than the way, the South put out the African slaves into the fields to do the cotton picking and other types of things. This guy is definitely has a different background from what, middle America is about.
So what we want from our politicians, what we want from Washington, what we want from the White House, we want transparency, right? We're not stupid. We're not ever going to get the transparency that we should get, but we want some transparency, okay? Be as honest as you can, please. Well, of course, Trump is always talking about transparency, Elon. So what they did after some backlash in the beginning, and I know it took them time to get it together. People were wanting results and numbers and proof. It does take a minute to get that shit together, okay? So give them that much. And then came the website. And on the website was the wall of receipts, or as I'll pull up from a Yahoo article. This was a wall of receipts leaderboard on the savings from Doge. And listen, by the way, when you read the numbers and heard the numbers, initial numbers in the first few weeks, they were incredible. So it's all Americans wanted to know. I'm not talking about the people screaming bullshit, and I was one of them. I'm not talking about that. You want to know the numbers, right? So they gave them to us. And then the news outlets media did what media does, right? They start snooping and they start digging, and shit start not adding up. And all of a sudden, Doge's 3 plus 3 equals 14, or even more directly, 3 plus 3 equals 14 million. And then the top 5 savings all of a sudden on the wall of receipts is deleted. Savings with no explanation, by the way. No explanation. And over here, where's my, right here, saying that these savings include a $232 million cut to the Social Security Administration that actually amounted to $560,000. 560, 232 million. An $8 billion, let me make sure I say that right, billion dollar cut at Immigration and Customs Enforcement that was actually only 8 million, not billion, but million, big difference, and $655 million cuts at the U.S. Agency for International Development that ended up being a measly $18 million. So anyway, it got deleted. And my point is this. If you're going to make up something, Coach, if you're going to make up something, like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm an honest guy now. I'm so honest now. My family can't stand me. My friends, I've lost friends. So fucking honest, man. I'm just going to tell you the truth. I'll do it respectfully. But I know but you guys know me. But damn, I was a liar back in the days. I was a schemer and a bullshitter. And one of the most important things about that was plan. You're probably going to get caught anyway because it's a fucking lie, but at least plan the damn lie. Make it look good. Coach, they put the fucking numbers up on the website like everybody on the planet was going to say, oh, shit, they're valid. Wow.
You know, you got to remember that the one thing Donald Trump is good at is presentation strategy, right? So if you get those numbers out into the news cycle quickly, the backlash never makes it to the base. You understand? So the fact that they are changing their list, the fact that, like you pointed out very clearly, the differences in the numbers. Yes, there's been some savings, however, not what they're reporting. And what they're not telling you is that a lot of these savings that they're claiming are through the administration of getting rid of employees. This is not something where they've ended programs that were fraudulent or overspending and they've cleaned up that overspending and stuff. It's not anything to do with that. The first wave of this was simply to get out those numbers to the Republican side voter to let them know that, hey, we're finding exactly what we always thought we would, and we're going to save you money. And by the way, with that money, we're going to cut you a check. And again, so the check becomes a cycle, right? That's a news cycle for a bit. And boom, you know, so this is the games that they play. The problem with the way that DOGE is doing this, it really should be a forensic approach when you're talking about going into departments and trying to find waste and fraud and create an efficiency. Certainly, there might have been plenty of room for layoffs, but they've already gotten rid of 200,000 employees. Okay. And the estimates is to get rid of 1 million. So they still have 800,000 people they want to purge from the federal government. This is huge. This is half the government workforce. And as you see right now with their initial approach, they're having to call back very important workers that they've let go because they didn't even understand the jobs, and which is why they put out that, hey, tell me 5 things that you did this week, because they don't understand what everybody's supposed to be fucking doing. They're clueless.
No. They're firing people without knowing what they do.
That's
They
my
don't
point.
I don't even know what the fuck they do. And Lori, again, as Coach was just saying, and part of that we'll talk about later on too, is the people that are being affected by this. It would be different if they had a list of Democrats, right? Like literally, like, oh, we have a voters list right here in America. Fucking just target every. No, this is their voters. They're voters. The veterans. I mean, ooh, Lori.
Well, my opinion is they're, you know, the majority of them are Americans, regardless of their party. That's the whole thing. And again, I see this as performative art because we're seeing videos of these people walking out of their offices with their boxes from their desks. And, you know, we're seeing the park rangers who are posting things about losing their jobs. It's performative. It's not a matter of direct oversight. I mean, it's been said that they're getting rid of all of the inspectors generals. Well, yeah. How about forensic accounting? I think that's what Glenn was leading at. You know, we need to take into account how this is hurting everybody. It's going to ultimately hurt every single one of us. We're not going to leave this being unscathed, because if we want to go somewhere, whether it's Park Service, we want to go there and, you know, well, they've cut the hours down on these days, or you can't get reservations to any of the lodging because guess what? There's nobody there to take care of the jobs. But it's also a matter of, you know, this international. Yeah, I agree. I agree that there is um, useless spending when there's not oversight as to where these items are going. Because, as I told you guys in a private conversation, somebody who lives in Zimbabwe had said that she can get USAID products in the stores. Well, it's up to those governments to make sure the food is going to the right people. But when we're cutting all kinds of stuff, like uh, seeing Musk last night, the one thing I did see was he says, "Oh no, we didn't cut. We might make mistakes, but we're going to fix them." And you know, Ebola, we're all worried about Ebola, and we're not cutting the funding for that. But that's a lie, because they have. They have. Where is the oversight?
You know, the thing that and again, I have family on both sides of the aisle, and certainly both wings. So when you talk to someone on the right, when it comes to foreign aid, they want to cut out, like, in their minds, no money should leave the United States until everything is taken care of America first. That's their opinion. But what they don't fully understand is that when you're sending food and medicine to another country, not only are you providing nutrition for the people there that have no other resource for nutrition, the medicine is included in terms of staying off disease. Now, as you have an impoverished nation becoming malnourished, disease spreads. And that's one of the hugest reasons why we're involved in foreign aid to impoverished countries, is because it helps prevent the spread of disease that can certainly leave their country and go across if, again, a big portion of the continent is poor and unmedicated. So there's just, like, they're not totally understanding that it's not just, okay, we're going to send these guys a bunch of freebies. It's not like that. It's an investment in our own safety and security.
Yes, and they're also cutting off the aid to the people with HIV or AIDS in our own country.
And so what's going to happen there? I mean, they've done tremendous things with HIV treatment. You know, they've done tremendous things, but you start falling back on that. it can still begin the spread again, you know?
Exactly.
And of course, again, food, services, programs, the list goes on and on with USAID. But how about that you also have Republicans who have supported USAID, publicly supported it, funding and all. Right now, they're politicians right now who now have changed their tune. Now, one of you said earlier, as you were talking, Coach, about DOGE and the fact of going about getting data and things like that. Well, we've heard the stories about going into sensitive data, go to Social Security, et cetera, et cetera. Well, over 20 employees quit.
Yeah.
This didn't come from, say, a media outlet or reporter who went and talked and did interviews where someone can say it's biased or left leaning or right leaning. NBC News, I'm pulling this from NBC News, Laura Kolodny, CNBC, Alan Smith, and Daniel Arkin. 21 civil service employees resigned in mass from Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, according to a letter posted online and shared with media outlets. The letter said they refused to use their technical expertise to compromise core government systems, jeopardize American sensitive data, or dismantle critical public services. And in the letter it says, "We swore to serve the American people and uphold our oath to the Constitution across presidential administrations," wrote the staffers, who joined when the agency was known as the United States Digital Service. However, it has become clear that we can no longer honor these commitments, and the United States DOGE service. Remember, in the first Trump presidency, the phrase "the adults in the room." Those were the people that were telling. Those were the people that were telling Donald Trump and others, "Whoa, can't do it that way." Now they had a plan this time, and you can see it, and wow, not hard to figure it out. If we win again, this time we get rid of all them mother. Okay, they all go and we install our people. But as you do that, you can't account for everybody, right? You just can't account for everybody. And you get 21 people like this who said, "Hell no. Whatever the hell shit you trying to do here, we're not trying to be that part of history." Coach, hoping that there are many more like that, because this has happened within the first 30, 40 days. We still got 4 years to go, man.
You know, that I think that's a noble thing for what they've done to, you know, not allow their integrity to be compromised. The problem is they're probably easily replaced. There's probably plenty of people that will go in.
We'll do it. No, we'll do it.
If you think about it in simple terms, right now is the greatest opportunity for our political enemies across the world to get people instituted into what's happening in the teardown of our government. You know, and this is something that hasn't really been mentioned, okay, but it definitely is something that's concerning, because it's not like they need to bring people over from another country. These people already exist. These people with technological backgrounds that have, you know, any kind of programming backgrounds, there's plenty of these nationals from other countries that exist in the United States that probably could easily get hired to fill those kinds of positions. And then what? And then what? Not only do they have access to all these records and information, but they also have the ability. What they did is they copied it onto a USB drive, all the information from the Treasury Department. So if that's all that it takes, how easy it for Russia, for China, for North Korea you know, to get their hands on all the information that these people are trying to download. It's crazy.
And
You
again,
just said
Lori,
we have children. We have children
yeah,
running this.
uh-huh.
Not,
I
you
mean,
know, we've got
Yeah.
19-year-old. They may be whiz kids with the computers.
But they're geniuses, obviously,
They may
right?
be geniuses, but they haven't lived in the real world long enough.
they're really smart kids, okay, that don't understand what the fuck they're doing. That's the only way to look at it. When you've left these what is it, 19 to 25-year-olds in charge of making cuts. Okay, so they are not just the technical people that are actually, you know, getting information from the servers and stuff like that, so they can have. No, these are decision makers. They're just randomly looking at budgetary items and cutting them out, and so therefore, this whole group of people that ran that department is now gone, and they're all unemployed. And then they find out, well, we shouldn't have let that one go, right? We got to bring them back, and we'll cut somewhere else over here instead. I mean, these are not, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, but they have a certain expertise that gives them the opportunity to work in Doge and clean it up. But I don't consider them geniuses. I think geniuses can put a lot more fucking thought into what they're doing.
Yeah, and did they or did they not swear an oath to the Constitution? Do they have security clearance or not?
No, the Doge employees, because Doge is not part of the 20 employees that resigned. Okay, Ralph mentioned they were part of a different program. That it was a digital program that was instituted for this kinds of stuff, right? So that department kind of already existed, and then Doge came along and kind of swallowed that up. So that department kind of went away. And the people that worked for that department kind of became part of Doge, but they actually had taken an oath as a civil servant, meaning they worked for the federal government. But now they're kind of part of Doge, but they still feel an alliance to their oath, you know.
Yeah, but these kids do not, and that's part of the problem.
No, not the Doge employees. No, these people have no. Who knows? I mean, think about this, right? How much has been spent already, according to the numbers I've seen, like $15 million that they've needed. They've been running the country for like 3 weeks. At that fucking rate, how much money are they going to end up saving to start with? You know, if we're paying them this much. But tell me how much it's going to fucking be that you walk up to one of these kids who are nationally known, globally known, okay, and say, listen, give me a hard drive and I'm going to give you $10 million. They're going to sell it. They're going to fucking sell it because they have no allegiance to anything other than that type of shit where it's money comes first.
Exactly. And I've had a personal experience already with, in the past, I have received at my home in New Jersey, I've received letters from Social Security that has told me what I may be entitled to should I retire, when I retire. Well, the other day I received an email with this information. I don't recall giving my numbers, my email address to Social Security. Of course, everything's out there. I get that. You know, our information is being farmed all the time. But this to me was a red flag.
It sounds like it should be, Lori. I'm sorry, Ralph. It sounds like it should be. I'm kind of jumping on this right now is that I understand how this works. So if you receive an email from Social Security, it generally tells you to go to socialsecurity.gov and sign in for the message that it has for you, right? So there's never a hey, listen, this is your information we have, like you would get in your quarterly report that tells you, you know, you've worked this many years, you've earned this many credits. That kind of information is never provided in the sense of an email. It's just people know, and the world should know, that emails can get hacked. They get fucking hacked all the time. So there's no way the Social Security Administration has actually sent you anything. Now, if it has the information that your quarterly report has, I think you're right. I think that's an example of some fucking funny shit going on, that somebody now has information that no one ever had before.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
it gave me a link which I just did not want to open because it really disturbed me.
do that. Don't do that now. Don't open. No, don't do that.
Now, I'm
But
pretty sure it was the Social Security link
If that
itself for the government, but
it wasn't.
go to your browser and type in the direct,
Right.
Social
You
Security.gov.
listen,
Go there and find out. Don't jump a link at all.
you don't.
no, I'm
you don't
not.
You don't even have to do that, Laurie. Where they sent you the email, it is going to have who sent it to you.
The email address of the
And
sender.
you will see the email address that sent it to you has absolutely nothing to do with Social Security. All they're going to tell is never. That has nothing to do with that. But speaking of all of this, and one thing that we have been very clear about, people, is Donald Trump is not going to lose his base. We don't even blink anymore. We don't flinch anymore when he does something in the sense of waiting for MAGA to say, oh, they're not going to change their mind. It doesn't matter what he does. But that MAGA is not the biggest percentage of his voters. The biggest percentage of his voters are Republicans, conservatives, Democrats who, for some reason, decided to go for independents, and those who decided to go blah, 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 blah. You know the breakdown. Hispanics, the working one, blah, blah, and all that. But in the midst of all of that, like anything, you're going to have what people call buyer's remorse. And there have been town hall revolts across the country. Constituents, backlash from constituents. First thing I'm going to say, before anybody says it to me later, oh, a bunch of paid. What did the Speaker of the House say? Yeah, the front room is filled with a bunch of paid Democrats, all full of paid Democrats. First of all, you don't know that. I don't know that. Coach don't know that. So that's a fucking lie, okay? So let's talk common sense here. Of course there are Democrats there. Some of them, and I must have watched 40 of these now, some of them are repeats to get more detail, identified themselves as a Democrat. They didn't have a problem with that. But those weren't the ones that I watched. Those weren't the ones I paid attention to. The ones I paid attention to, the ones that said words like, I voted for you. I voted for the president. Those who have are screaming about the cutting of government programs, the potential of cuts. I didn't see the bill, okay? I don't know. $880 billion to Medicaid and other things that people are getting pissed. So much so that a GOP aide has said that the House of Republicans are urging lawmakers to stop the town halls altogether. Remember, people, we talk about 4 years with Trump. We got 4 fucking years. What are we going to do? We got 2. 2026. Midterms. And what turns a midterm? What helps turn a midterm? What helps get a midterm going? News cycles, backlash, negative news, people pissed off for what you're doing to them. I've watched videos of men and women I should say, and then even men crying on camera. I worked for the federal government for so many years. I gave my life to the government. I dreamed of that job when I first got it 18, 19, 27 years ago. And then I've had, and you gave me an email that said of my performance, and I've never had their own voters. I'm going to turn it over to you guys when I look in the camera and say this. I've said this since the beginning. Trump don't give a fuck about you, me, him, her, none of you. Coach, what hurts the most is what Lori said. It's not so much that they're Republicans. They're Americans, dude.
You know, there's two parts to this that I wanna point out, right? The first part is the people that are losing services now that didn't see that coming, right? So we know they're losing, you know, they're going after the Medicaid, they're going after the SNAP programs, they've gone after all different types of you know subsidies that were contributing to other people's lives and stuff like that. And now the problem is that Republican voter has been led to believe that it's the immigrants. They're like ticks on your back, just sucking and taking the blood out of you. Those are the ones that are going to be affected by these programs because we're going to get rid of them. We're going to get all these people off of Medicare. We're going to get them off of Social Security. We're going to get them off of, you know, the SNAP program, all these entitlement stuff, right? So they're led to believe like there's this huge number of illegals that are just draining the system. So they figured, hey, if they're going to cut benefits, they're cutting their benefits, not mine. And that's their rationale when it comes to looking at why they voted for the benefit cut.
How is that a rationale? How that sounds stupid. How is that a rationale? I get what you're saying, but how the hell is that a rationale?
You know, I don't want to say it like it's the ignorant that don't have enough common sense to look at how this could possibly go. But they're only ignorant because they only limit themselves to a certain source of information, and they're not ones that pick up and look beyond that and try to research the fact checking, if you will. Try to find out, you know. I've seen a lot of shit come off my feed on Facebook that I quickly open up another page and find out what the accuracy is of that statement, because I don't want to be someone who's just going off of a knee-jerk reaction to some fucking social media post without any credibility. Even if it has quotes around the individual statement, you can't trust that at all.
No.
And I debate a lot with my nephew about things, so I want to kind of be on tune with that because he's quick with his phone. But the other part of it is, remember, all these federal employees that paid attention saw that Project 2025 was about loyalists, about staying loyal. We're going to keep the loyal ones and we're going to get rid of the ones that aren't loyal to us, right? So I'm sure all these Republican voters that are federal employees that are crying now on videos about how they lost their dream job or how it's going to affect their bankruptcy, and they probably thought that they were safe, that they weren't part of the target group. What they didn't understand was Donald Trump and Elon Musk were going to flush the toilet and rebuild from there. They didn't give a fuck about your alliances and stuff like that. You can reapply for a federal position, and they're going to start rehiring. They're actually purging 800,000 more people, which is 1 million people they're getting rid of in the federal government. And they're going to start a rehiring process based on how they want each department to be structured. So that's where the loyalist part will come in.
I wonder what some of that criteria would be. Lori, I want to add.
You want to know what the criteria is? Look at 2025. They actually have an application process of going through to get a job in the federal government.
I want to add two things to get Lori in here. One, Lori, I forgot to mention that the videos that I paid attention to the most were in Republican strongholds, where in certain areas, the Republican there, congressman, congresswoman, won by more than 60%. They got more than 60% of the vote. I mean, it was landslides and so 30, 40-point wins. So don't tell me that it was full of Democrats. Well, how could 2/3 of the people in the district vote? Okay, second thing, Lori, is the other videos, and Lori's good for this. The other videos that I enjoyed, because I'm telling you, I want to repeat again, though they're Republicans, and they were warned, not by us, because Donald Trump did not make a secret what he was going to do. He did not make a secret what he was going to do. By the way, we don't have to talk about Project 2025 anymore, because there's no question now that it is firmly in place and continuously being implemented, okay? So, Lori, there was this one woman in particular, and I thought of Lori, because I kind of thought what Lori would be saying back to her, something along like, I could just hear it now, because the woman lost her job, Lori, a federal job, 32 years. Only job she's ever had. She's crying. Don't know what she's going to do, what her family's going to do. She doesn't know anything. I mean, and it's heartbreaking. And then, I mean, literally, I'm falling into the video, right? Like, damn, girl, I feel for you. Damn, that's some. And then she says, but I understand that our president has to do what he has to do. And he has a plan, and he's on course to do great. Like, what the fuck just happened? So they're out there, Lori. It's like, again, I joke with them. They could hurt you. I tell people on social media, they could hurt you, and you'll still defend him. And I just saw it for the first time.
And I saw one the other day, and it was a farmer, and farmer's wife, and two of them. And, well, we might lose our farm, but hey, that's the way it goes. We're not getting subsidized right now because he's doing great things for the country. I'm sorry, but there's a saying out there, FAFO, and you can kind of guess what that might mean. But I will tell you, it's F around and find out.
Tell them, Lori. Fuck around and find out.
And that's what's going to happen. That is happening right now. And you know what? When they're waiting for the bread lines, and I'm going to wonder, will they or will they not still think he's such a wonderful president for what he's doing right now? Now, if you go back, I've been following a lot with the National Park Services, and, they hung a flag upside down on the side of Yosemite, the mountains. I'm not sure what they're called, but that's a sign of distress. And I applaud them, because this is something that has gone viral. And maybe you're starting to see that, you know what, there are people who are going to be hurt by this and are being hurt by this. And honestly, you voted for Trump and you didn't get yourself educated on what the real deal was. I'm sorry. I don't have much sympathy for you at this point. Bottom line.
I agree with you, Lori. I don't, take pleasure necessarily unless it's something that makes a lot of sense to be, find funny. But when you're talking about the ones that are still getting harmed, but are still supportive, I think with the farmers, for example, all right, not every farmer is really going to be hurt by what's happening, especially when it comes to it's a lot of grant money that are hurting the farmers when they froze that money. Some of it has to do with losing, agricultural workers, some of it. But there's a lot of independent farms that are very successful, that have their own chain of supply. They have their own customer base. This is not something that they've been living on subsidies for their farm. So you can easily interview somebody who's successful at what they're doing and say, hey, okay, but it ain't a bad thing that they're doing. They got to do it. The thing is that we got to realize, like Ralph mentioned, right, the person who said she had 32 years in the system, okay? Not only are they losing their jobs, okay, but they're losing their pensions and they're losing their health cares. And these are huge things in a person's life. Like, you work 30-something years in an organization that has a retirement pension that includes healthcare benefits. And let me tell you, I was a state worker, and my pension and benefits are outstanding. And I'm sure that a federal worker has something at least similar, if not maybe even better.
Yeah.
So they're losing that. And don't think for a second that's not part of the DOGE efficiency. If you kick these people off of the fucking pension plan, you just saved lots of money. Because now you have this pension plan that has been well flooded with cash
for decades,
that no longer has the demand on that fund anymore.
And they've already done stuff like that with the teachers and the police and firefighters who are getting state pensions and stuff with Social Security. They want, you don't get double benefits. Sorry.
Right.
Regardless of whether you paid into the program or you didn't pay into it. But the sad part is that a lot of these people were veterans. A lot of the federal workers were veterans. And what do you do when you've got 32 years in? What do you do? What's the likelihood of you finding something else to do?
That's what she was saying. She didn't know what she was going to do.
Yeah.
And Coach, you made me remember another video I saw about the farmer. I did see a video of a farmer who's doing well. He said he's doing well. He's turned a profit, even in the Biden years. He talked about the profit he turned in the Trump first administration. He continues to turn a profit. He's turning a profit. Now, the only thing he's concerned about, I don't remember what he does, but whatever he does, it requires these big aluminum tanks. And he's worried about the tariffs on aluminum now. So he said, I'll have to hold, but his words were, I'll have to hold off on that for now, but it's okay because we're doing well. And I'm not going to turn around and say, fucking bullshit. You just said that because you were. No, he sounded like he was really sincere.
No, that sounds like somebody who understands what's going on. The silos that they store grain in and stuff like that are
right. That's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And the farming equipment, the equipment as well.
The equipment as well. And this is where the grants come in. Like there's a couple different ways that the grant helps the farmer. And one of them is buying the actual product that's produced and sending it overseas, part of the USAIDs, where you're feeding, other countries and stuff like that. The other part of the grant is basically what they call conservation of the land. It allows you to do certain things, like you've heard about how you grow one crop in one field for a number of years and then you change it and you do something different with the soil. And maybe you go a year or two without a crop to prep the soil for another product and stuff like that. That's where part of that money comes in. It helps you kind of get along while you're doing part of these conservation things, irrigation, another thing, and so there's a lot of ways these monies come into farming communities. The problem is, again, when you start cutting these things, what are we opening ourselves up to? And a lot of people are going to recognize this if they haven't already, is corporate takeover of farming. So not only are you getting these, and again, equipment is part of the grants and stuff like that for upgrades so they could be more efficient. But the idea, okay, and it is part of the idea, I think, globally with what's been going on. Simply look at the rental properties that have been taken over by corporations and stuff like that, buying private residencies so they can, rent those out. Yep. This is all part of the change from a capitalistic style system to an authoritative type system where you're beholden now to a handful of organizations, investment funds like Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street are the top three, right? They're going to own, and they're going to come in and buy your property, by the way, for a fucking discount because you can't run your farm. You've gone bankrupt. Your property is no longer, valued at what it was as a running, successful farm, and they're going to come in and buy it up for nothing. And then the investment comes into corporate farming. And now with all the deregulation, if you look at all the deregulation that has gone on, and this is all part of the setup, okay, they can do whatever they want to those crops. They can use whatever chemicals they want. They can facilitate growth rate. They can do bioengineering. They can do whatever they want to the food source in America for profit, quite simply for profit. And that's what's going to become.
One more thing before we move on to another subject, if that's where we're heading. when you brought up,
Yeah.
Ralph, about the backlash from constituents, I am in a red district, and we have a Vern Buchanan is our House representative. Well, they just did a poll, and he's held this seat firmly for many, many years. The poll right now has 55% of the people are very dissatisfied with his performance. Only 27% are satisfied with his performance, and the rest, well, they're undecided or whatever however the polls work. I personally did not get this poll, even though I am a Republican. I'm a Republican in this county for the purposes of being able to vote in primaries because it is red. But it's quite interesting to me that this is, a polling, and you know the
I think the way
constituents are not happy.
Yep.
I think you're absolutely right, Lloyd. I think the poll represents the statistic, the not being happy. I think what you have to look at though is that doesn't mean there's a window necessarily for a Democrat to win that seat in a highly red district. But what there is room for is for a non-MAGA candidate to come out and attack that MAGA, especially anybody who's currently incumbent holding that position, attack that MAGA, exploit the fact that you are in so much pain as a Republican, population, that we need to get rid of this craziness. We need to go back to normalcy. We need to go back to our traditional values. You're going to find that probably more than a Democrat necessarily winning, though it's going to happen. And I think it just happened recently in a state seat where a highly red district, the guy lost his seat to a Democrat.
And we'll see that. We've got 3
I think
seats
you
that are
will.
coming up.
I,
What's
I
that?
think you will. But
Yeah,
I think the best
we'll
way
definitely
going
see that.
forward, I think the
And you know
best way
what?
going forward is going to be for Republicans to take on each other.
I agree. And that is exactly why I personally am voting Republican, because of the primary. I voted Republican for the runner who was challenging the incumbent, and we were successful on a community level,
Yep.
highly successful. We
And
ousted
that's what I
the worst of the MAGA crowd, and there's 2 more coming up in 2 years because they don't all go at the same, aren't all voted on at the same time. And you know what's happening? They have changed their tunes because they are afraid of losing their seats now. So it works.
And that's what I think. I think that MAGA is going to become a bad word. I think that over the next 2 years, specifically leading into the midterms, MAGA is going to mean bad news because everybody's going to blame MAGA over the next 2 years, and there's no other thing that can be blamed than the MAGAs, right? And so I think it's going to become something that a lot of people are going to want to detach themselves from. And so going with somebody who's non-incumbent and non-MAGA, I think is going to be a very successful endeavor for those different politicians, But yeah, I think MAGA is going to become a 4-letter word.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was talking about earlier about it's not 4 years, people. That 2026 midterms. Midterms can swing
Let,
the vote.
let me throw this at you. Yeah, I want to throw this at you. I don't think I mentioned it this way to you guys before. So the House does impeachments, right? So if we gain the majority in the House, you're guaranteed you're going to have impeachment of Donald Trump. That's a plain out fact. Okay. Now, the Senate is always very close in split. As these different states, the red states those that rely on the blue states to chip in a little more for their sake. And you're seeing it now with grants being taken away to subsidize people's electric bills in red states. So they were highly benefiting from these government fundings, right? You get all you need is 60 to get rid of a president, right? 60 senators that go along with it. If you get the majority Senate at 51, you just need 9 senators from the Republican side to vote to get rid of Donald Trump, and he's out the fucking door. Now, if they ran on the non-MAGA approach, they very well could be running on, we need to get this guy out of office. So you're only talking about 9 senators across America that are currently Republicans be replaced with cooperative Republicans. You know, the Adam Kissinger type person, the Liz Cheney type person, those that still exist but are quiet. Let them come out. And okay, so you get rid of Trump, right, with impeachment. You end up with Vance, right? You fucking impeach that douchebag too. Get rid of him. You just chop the fucking head of the snake and the tail of the snake. And guess who becomes president? The leader of the House of Representatives, who would be a Democrat. So in 2 years' time, you may see an attack, a true attack on getting rid of the Republican administration.
You know, Coach, I like that. Now, I like it. If you go, I like it so much that Lori had mentioned something about getting rid of, about not talking about the next topic, and I'm going to get rid of it. I like it so much because if you go by the climate of today, hell no, that shit's not going to happen. These spineless, weak-ass Republicans, even when they talk shit, still vote in his favor and still back him. But go with what you said on the other side of the coin. This time it's different. Because Trump has clearly told Republican senators and the Republican Congress, I really don't give a fuck what you think. I don't care what any of you say. Listen, we just finished telling a couple of judges, fuck you, we don't care what you say either. It is against the law to block funds appropriated and approved by Congress, period. You can't do that. End of fucking story, okay? They're doing it now. They're going back to the court. The judge just said it. Listen, dude, we got to stop this bullshit. You got funds that you have to release and you're not releasing. So go into your scenario, Coach. If it's this way 6 weeks in, maybe 18 months from now, there's going to be 8 to 10 Republicans that say, yo, we got to stop this.
Think about it. I absolutely agree with you. And that's part of that, what we call in scientific terms, a butterfly effect, right? So a butterfly flaps its wing in China, and eventually there's a hurricane, and it comes across and finds its way to be strong winds, right? So this is what's going to happen, because right now the ripple effect hasn't set in, right? So the MAGA grandma, okay, who, you know, it goes out to the rallies with her MAGA hat and her, you know, her red, white, and blue vest and stuff like that. That's fine until her fucking child can't feed the grandchild, and there's no food anymore at school. And there's no SNAP program that's paying for those, you know, lunches and dinners that otherwise would have been paid for by the food stamp applications. So they're gonna start to feel the pain, especially when now grandma has to go off the rally line and go to fucking store and buy the grandchild food for the week because there's no help there. And the mom's doing the best she can by going to work 40 hours a week, but it just doesn't pay. It just doesn't pay. So there's a ripple effect that has yet to take place, but will over the next 18 months, for sure.
Oh, yeah, medical care for these children. I can see businesses that are childcare going out because no children are going to be there because the parents can't afford to send them to childcare. It's going to be huge.
Yeah. Now you have 2 children already now in Texas out of that 124 child outbreak of measles. 2 of them already died. All right. And you know, the head of the department says, well, that's usual. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. It's been fucking 10 years since someone's died from the measles, and now you have 2 deaths in fucking a matter of a couple weeks.
I had heard one death. Is there one today?
There's 2. Either yesterday or today. I want to say yesterday because it feels like I've known about it for a short time here.
Hold on.
I know when they made a big me too. when they had him speaking about it, that was one of the things they were fact checking RFK on, that there was only one child at that point, and that was
No, at
last
that
Right
month.
time,
now,
at that time when they confronted him on it, there was only one.
Okay.
Since then, I read that a second one had died.
And
But
the
that's go
interesting
ahead,
thing
Laura.
is it's not just in Texas. I just read a story that it's in New Jersey, which of course is concerning to me. And they are now starting to tell people who are over 50, you really should consider getting revaccinated.
all right.
And I am personally.
So far, Coach, I'm finding one, but I'll keep looking. Hold it. Wait a minute. A day ago reports 2 deaths. So
There you go.
two. Okay. So by the way, the measles outbreak has also been reported north of me in Kentucky. Uh, some
5 states, I believe.
so
And mind you, it's all children that are unvaccinated. This
I
is
was,
not a
I was about to go. I was about to
yeah.
go there.
We
I was
really
about.
need to clarify that. This is all of unvaccinated, voluntarily unvaccinated children. The parents had withheld vaccinations from them.
All right.
But
Randolph Smith.
there's more that's going to happen. He found two.
Randolph Switzer says he found 2. Randolph, what's up, Randy? Randolph Switzer is, I'm going to do it, Randy. Randolph Switzer is my childhood friend. I've known Randy now, oh God almighty, Randy. How long have I known you, Randy? 55 years. And he is the reason I call Tennessee home. So thank you, Randy. So 2, and I was going to go there, Coach, because first and foremost, we're parents, right? And the one thing that those who aren't parents truly don't understand is the love of a parent for its child or children. You can't explain that. You can't. And you do anything for your child, right? And the main thing is you're going to keep your child alive, right? So you mentioned, Coach, unvaccinated, right? And before I go where I'm going to look at the camera and say, and I don't want to say it like I would have said it on the old format, okay? People, I don't understand what you don't understand about vaccines. Nobody, it's a vaccine. It's not a cure. If it was a cure, they would stick the needle in you, and as they stick the needle, we would all know that what they're sticking inside of you is a cure. Stops it. Goes away, right? Vaccines help keep you from getting so sick, dying, catching it, things like that. All took vaccines as kids. If you went in the military, you had to get shots going into the military. We can go on and on and on. You have 2 sets of parents out there right now whose children are dead. They're gone because they decided that it was best not to vaccinate their child. I am not taking away their right to choose that. It was their right to choose it. But statistics have shown across the history of mankind that vaccines save more lives, countless more lives than people that don't take vaccines. But I know, Coach, you just got these fucking people that got it stuck in their head.
You just said it though, Ralph. It's been stuck in their head. This is not something that a mom in the middle of nowhere who says I don't trust vaccines that came up with the fear of it on their own. This is something. This has been pumped into them from the radical side of the right wing, in that they want to push herd immunity. That was a big thing during COVID, was the idea of now herd immunity is something that we're all familiar with, right? It's back in the day when you got the chicken pox, and then your family and neighborhood had a chicken pox party, and all the kids hung out and had a grand time and ended up with the chicken pox all at the same time, right? That's kind of what herd immunity is about. But you gotta give some thought to the threat of the fucking disease before you start saying you want herd immunity to go on. Okay, if it's something that is like the chicken pox, and it's probably the greatest example of my lifetime is the chicken pox, it's not all that deadly. The percentage of deaths for children of chicken pox are extremely low. So that makes sense on herd immunity. You don't need necessarily to vaccinate, and they don't vaccinate for chicken pox, or at least they didn't back in the day. I can't
They
say where
do.
all
They do now.
they do now.
They didn't.
And
Yes,
I
they
think,
did not have a vaccine until my children were little.
yeah. Now, the vaccine that you want as a grown up, the three of us, would be for shingles, because we've probably all had the chicken pox, and
Yeah.
therefore we have the virus in our system that can lead to shingles, which is a far more agonizing disease to have than the chicken pox. So, I would say if you're 50 plus years old, I would say go get a shingles vaccine. It makes sense.
Done it. Done it.
See, exactly, and that's where it's at. But when you're talking about things like rubella, the measles, polio, how far are we going to go with this fucking, this anti-vax stuff where no vaccines are given to these people? The biggest reason I think that a lot of people became anti-vax was that they were being told that it caused autism. The vaccines were causing autism. And it was such a terrible report that was done overseas that statistically, even looking at their own numbers, you can read that it wasn't the case. But they just put out a report that says that was their finding, that it was causing autism. And the right ran with that and just totally blew up the whole fear mongering of, if you give your kids vaccines, they're going to end up autistic. My sister's a nurse. And when my niece was born, this was like 14 years ago now, when she was born, my sister was very reluctant over the mass vaccines that they give. So typically when you bring your child to the doctor, they're going to give that child a number of vaccines in one visit. And they're going to load up the body with the vaccines. And she was real hesitant about that. So she worked with the doctors to space out the vaccines in as responsible a fashion as they could over the time that it would take for her to be needing to have met the vaccine requirement to enter any kind of daycare and stuff like that. So she was very cautious of them. But again, I think it was also part of that. Back 15 years ago, everybody was thinking that it caused autism, and it doesn't. And it's proven not to cause autism, though I don't think that these anti-vaxxers, they're not scientists. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful to somebody, but if you're not fucking a science-minded person where you can trust the science, you're going to fucking reject everything. I don't care if you're going to reject it. The earth is fucking flat. That's your position. Everything from the fucking moon landing is staged. I don't care if you think vaccines are going to cause autism. This is what these fucking people believe, that science is the enemy. I did a search the other day, right? Because I was like, what do the scientists say about Fauci? I hear a lot of fucking crap about people complaining about Fauci. What legitimate scientific group has come out against what he handled and how he's done in his? Not a fucking article in the world. Not an article in the world from a scientific organization or a specific scientist that said anything about Fauci doing bad shit. It's always some fucking wacko like Woody Harrelson. Who the fuck are you? Now, I like him as an actor, but I don't fucking care for him as a person.
No, yeah, you ain't got that right.
He's done evil things since the AIDS and stuff. It like no one is saying this, but some fucking idiot that does not fucking have any faith in science to start with. Give me a
May
break.
I add something?
Absolutely.
Please.
Yeah,
Please.
I remember back in the 90s, Jenny McCarthy was one of the people coming out. She had an autistic child. And I remember seeing her on Fox News, because Fox News wasn't the enemy to me at that point. That being said, one of the things that you have to consider, like for for instance, it's not just the child getting sick. In New Jersey, the children they had gone out of the country, they came back, and they went to a hospital. And every single one of the people who handled the child had to be tested. So there's money being spent and testing being done on people that it wouldn't be necessary. So that's a waste, in my opinion. So, and then who's paying for that? Is that part of the government
That's
Yeah.
or
that's
insurance? You know, so you have to think about it. The children are now in isolation, and
I
luckily,
yeah.
all of the people who had treated the children initially are fine. But still, they had to be put through the stress of the potential that they might have measles.
You get that's what I did, coach. We're far removed from whatever it was, but this is from
Yeah.
Keisha. That's from Keisha Jackson, who happens to be my oldest daughter. Uh I'm gonna end this wonderful. We cut out two topics of our agenda, but for something really important and good. And I'm gonna end it with this. Coach touched on this. You are not born a racist, and you are not born an anti-vaxxer. Those things are taught to you. Those things are told to you. You become a racist, I guess I'm just going to say because your parents are racist. And you're surrounded by racists and they teach you how to become a racist. You're not born an anti-vaxxer. You hear people talking about it, they influence you, and hence you become an anti-vaxxer. And like the coach said, most importantly, you're not a fucking scientist. You're not a doctor. You're not a professional. And you want to talk about other people being brainwashed or call them sheep being led when all they have to do is tell you that moon right here behind me, cottage cheese. It really is cottage cheese. Because right now we live in a world where if the man in charge tells MAGA, I'm telling you folks, I got the news, I got the email straight from the moon. It's cottage cheese. It'll be all over the far right media. President got an email from the moon. It's been verified. It's cottage cheese. And we'll all just sit here saying, okay, so it happened again. You're not born with these things, people. They're fucking taught to you, okay? I don't. Hey, we still got final thoughts, but we got one more topic. I couldn't get rid of this one. By the way, Keisha, the Lady Vols are getting their ass kicked. I'm watching it down here. University of Kentucky the women's basketball team of Kentucky, 72, Lady Vols 43.
oh shit.
Right. Hi, Lisa Reed. Welcome back, Lisa Reed. Nice to have you back. Always nice to see you coming back, Lisa Reed. Okay, here we go. 3 words. Well, 1 word. Repeated 3 times. Very famous phrase. We're going to use it in a different way. Russia, Russia, Russia. So we usually hear, when you hear Russia, 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 right behind that you hear it's a hoax. We're not going to talk about that Russia, Russia, Russia. Here's a Russia, Russia I'm going to talk about. And I'm not going to be a happy camper when I say this, okay? I really don't give a fuck what party you're from. Democrat, Republican, Independent, green, yellow, black. I really don't care. I think it's fair to say that most of us who went to school, who paid attention, were taught that the Soviet Union, what was once known as the USSR, the Soviet Union, the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin, evil, enemies, devils. You can come up with a whole bunch of words, right? I can go on and on and on and on. We've all known that. For any president. I'm not talking about China, okay? That's a whole other story. Lisa said hi. I thought, to side with Russia, for me, never possible, not only in my lifetime, in human history. And I have felt that way for decades. Because there's no way a president of the United States is going to side with Russia or a Russian leader or president. We go back to 2014. Joe Biden is in Ukraine. They have a corrupt prosecutor over there. We've got some money going to Ukraine. We get the backing of the European Union. Obama sends Joe Biden with the backing of the European Union. Republicans here in America, Joe Biden said, and yeah, of course it was a fucking quid pro quo. What, somebody going to say it wasn't a quid pro quo? Biden said, yeah. You don't get rid of this fucking guy, you ain't getting the money. That's a quid pro quo. That's quid pro quo. Okay? That's quid pro quo. So, but here we are today. Lori, what was that? UN? The UN would not sign a resolution stating that Russia started the war. Now, I'm going to try again not to go back to the old format, okay? But you have got to be out of, there's got to be something special inside of you. Any of you that don't know that Russia invaded Ukraine. That's yeah, Coach, go, because I'm gonna come on.
Something needs to be clarified, right? Because with regards to like political sides here in America, they have to understand the way you describe the quid pro quo with Biden. It comes down to, it is the pressure, not only the United States, but NATO as a whole, okay, including the European Union, all right, that has a requirement for Ukraine to purge corruption, okay? That's a requirement to get into NATO. And so the pressure that was put on through the Obama administration with Joe Biden, supported by the European Union, that had everything to do with squashing clear corruption.
Clear.
And you have to address this corruption. You have to get rid of this corruption if you're ever going to make it through the application process of becoming a NATO country. And so it wasn't a matter of, listen, do me a political favor, okay? I'm gonna let this money come to you, but you got to do me this one favor. Let's, at least announce an investigation against the Bidens. Just say you're investigating corruption on their part, and I'll let this money flow to your country. That was what Trump was trying to do versus what Obama was trying to do, was saying, you got to get rid of this fucking overt corruption where the world can see, and you do nothing, then you're harming your chances of becoming a NATO country, and we can't finance that. So it's very different. Two very different situations.
Yeah, right. And that's exactly what they did do. That's why Zelensky is actually in office at this point.
Exactly. That's why the comedian is president.
Right. And, this was used. This is why Trump has a real problem with Ukraine, is because that quid pro quo has got him impeached the second time. And it was on his side trying to push, Zelensky to give up information on Biden, because Biden was going to be running for president. So a lot of this, in my opinion, has to do with, how Trump has to get even with people. So he's getting even with Ukraine for him ever getting impeached.
No doubt. That's part of the mineral deal. That's part of the mineral deal right there. Listen, what is this rare mineral thing with Ukraine and what the administration wants
But
right now.
wait. The rare mineral was already being worked on by Biden, and Zelensky had already agreed to do it. So it's not
for
something
different reasons,
new.
right? But for
Yes,
different reasons, right? Because what Trump is saying is you got to pay us back, and like Zelensky said, nobody told me that was a loan; those were grants.
that's right. That's right.
You know, just to circle back, just historical picture, and I don't know how many people remember the Soviet Union and how much space it occupied across Europe.
Mammoth,
but
mammoth.
The reason now we were allies in World War II. Russia and America were allies in World War II to defeat Nazi Germany, but we were also in competition with one another. We were competing for territory, and we were competing for scientists. We were competing for technology. We were in competition with Russia, starting right out the gate. And so that competition is what built up the whole idea of the Cold War, the space competition, trying to get to, outside Earth orbit, go to the moon, all these things. This was all part of a global competition between two superpowers. And then Russia collapsed, or the Soviet Union collapsed. And some of these countries, including Ukraine, became democratic societies and leaving Russia kind of out the door. And one of the things they lost because of that collapse was the resources that they controlled in these countries. So Ukraine, which has a high resource value for rare minerals, Russia doesn't have access to those minerals now. And that's one of the reasons why they wanted to take back the territory. And one of the reasons why Trump is willing to let them keep the territory, because they're friends now, and there's mineral resources there that every country, say mainstream country in the world is fighting over. There's a reason why they're called rare earth elements, because they're fucking extremely rare. And if you find them somewhere, China has the most rare earth elements and does the most refining and processing of rare earth elements. And one of the things that it feeds is technology, computer systems, advancements in different chip making, all kinds of airplane parts. Everything is using these types of resources. And so that's what the Americans versus the rest of the world, although we're partners now really with China and Russia, because we're trying to niche out where we can get these elements, these rare earth elements, to benefit our country. That's why Greenland is on the table. There's lots of resources there that we want to mine. Want drill, baby, drill, right? This is what it's all about globally right now, and why the superpowers are kind of like in a collusion together and taking over other areas to get access to these elements.
I have a question for you, Glenn, which you probably know the answer to. I think that everything would have been, first of all, Russia also wanted the port cities to shut off Ukraine. And they did get.
First. That's what they annexed in the beginning in the Crimea.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But the other thing was, and this is my question for you. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine gave up its rights to the atomic information, weaponry, whatever they had. I think, isn't Chernobyl in Ukraine?
Chernobyl is in Ukraine, yes.
Yeah. So now, if they did not do that, this war may never have occurred, and it would definitely have put Ukraine in a very good position if they had their nuclear arsenal that they had originally had. So what was the reason for Ukraine? That's my question. What was the reason for Ukraine giving that up?
Homework.
It's a cost efficiency aspect when you're talking about running a nuclear base. There's a lot of investment that's involved in it, and there's a turnover rate as well. That nuclear weapons don't just sit there idle. There's new technology that comes into place that allows them, those that have resources, to upgrade a lot of their nuclear technology and stuff. And I don't think Ukraine could have handled, especially coming right off of the breakup of the Soviet Union and trying to reestablish itself. I don't think they could afford to handle that responsibility, and I don't think Russia wanted to leave them with the nuclear weapon capacity. Chernobyl was a different issue. Chernobyl wasn't a nuclear weapon facility. That had to do with making power.
Yeah.
But it goes to show you how a level of irresponsibility when you're talking about nuclear anything can be devastating, and not only just to the local area, but to that whole hemisphere had been affected by nuclear fallout because of that Chernobyl accident. So I think that's the answer. I think had to do with Soviet Union wanted to protect their own warheads and stuff like that, and there's no way Ukraine could have afforded to keep up a nuclear arsenal.
And as you see, I've shared an image here. I remember growing up as a kid. This is not an actual map, but a good illustration of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. I remember in school, I know you guys remember, looking at a map and looking at when you went over to Russia, this is what you saw. You saw the letters USSR, but you saw them so big. They covered such a gigantic territory. By the way, Lori,
Yes.
says here, you talk about why Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons.
Yes.
Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in exchange for security guarantees from other countries. Ukraine's decision was influenced by a desire for international recognition, the breakdown of negotiations with Russia, and the trilateral statement. So just as with the Biden administration, and just as President Zelensky would do as the president of Ukraine, wants to use these minerals. He keeps saying the same. He's even said, look, I'll step down. I just want security for my country. All Ukraine has wanted, and Coach touched on it earlier, that there's certain qualifications. You got to meet certain standards in order to get into NATO. They just want to get into NATO. They want security. They want to be safe. They want to be part of this alliance. And yeah, Laurie, they didn't give up those nuclear weapons, boy. It might be in a different position now. Damn.
Yeah, it definitely would, in my opinion, it would have definitely changed an awful lot of what happened. And when you say getting into NATO, well, isn't Trump trying to get us out of NATO?
And not getting away from Russia too, by the way. Think about this. If I'm wrong, Coach, correct me and continue with what you were going to say. It's as if we're just handing Putin everything he wants.
And that's exactly what it is. Lori, I totally agree with you. If Ukraine had a nuclear arsenal, I don't see Russia ever invading that country to start with.
No.
You know what I mean? There's no telling
that close. Being that close.
Where we're at now, like when we look at what a nuclear weapon is, our imagery goes back to this massive explosion that took out, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we've all seen the ones down in Vegas where they were doing the testing, and these huge bombs, and they're even bigger nowadays. But what's worse is they're even smaller. They're even smaller than that.
Oh yeah.
So you have precision nuclear bombing capacity now, and this is part of what I was saying as far as like the development and investment in things. You have nuclear weapons that a warhead could be so many thousands of pounds of a dynamite measurement, and now you have a warhead that's millions of pounds of dynamite, but it's the same capacity to fire. It's the same volume of firing, and yet you have a capacity that can take out entire regions without necessarily the impact that having the Hiroshima bombs and stuff like that did. So it's very it can become battleground, if you will, battleground nuclear weapons where you can actually use them in a battlefield. So it's crazy where they're at now.
Very, very
definitely.
But again,
one of the interesting things that I really, I'm sorry, but I took pleasure in seeing was when Emmanuel Macron was with Trump. I see the smile, Glenn. and Trump tried to make it seem like the USA has the most amount of money and it's spent on this war. And Macron reached over on grabbed his hand and said, "No, no, no, no. This is what Europe has." And something else was said too about
The
whether it was a
loan,
loan.
the
Yeah,
money,
the loan.
all the money going to Ukraine being a loan, and Macron basically right away like, no, no, bro, that's not how it goes. No.
So he needed a little bit of educating there. The question is, will we or won't we continue to support Ukraine?
I think under the administration right now, the Trump administration, we won't support, and he's been talking about this since 1987, mind you. Okay, he's been talking about the problem with NATO. In his mind, is that the United States is the highest contributor to the budget for NATO, and the problems exist over there. In his mind, that's a European problem, and we're over here in a different hemisphere, if you will. So in Trump's mind, it's like it's just money floating over to Europe for no reason, not giving any respect to the fact that the reason why there is that wall is that there was a Soviet wall, and the wall of NATO was to defend each other against the encroachment of the Soviet Union, because not one country could defend themselves by themselves. It was the actions of all the countries coming together that kind of kept that Soviet Union in check. Ukraine wanted part of that, that protection of NATO, but haven't yet. And that's one of the reasons why, Putin was willing to go in and invade them. They're not a NATO country, and therefore you don't rile up the beehive. Donald Trump wanting to pull out of NATO, yes, I think he wants to. I think every European country, including those in NATO, should consider the United States a fucking enemy. If you're not living in Russia, and you're not living in North Korea, and you're not living in friggin' South Africa now, and you're not living in China, you're an enemy to the United States. And we should be perceived as the enemy right now.
I agree with that. And the interesting part is that the GOP, when the war started, there was so much support from the Republicans in general, the congressmen. Now, where do they stand? That's what I want to know. What's going to happen when there's voting?
Listen, you have a bunch of people that have fucking scrambled eggs for brains that are running this fucking country, including congressmen, okay? And right now we know that those that are fucking MAGA people are going to go along with whatever message the president wants, not what they think personally. They're fucking vegetables when it comes to that. When they look at their different positions, they fail to continue to understand that the monies that are being measured, okay, when you're talking about billions of dollars being sent to Ukraine for foreign aid from America, it's not dollars. We're not depositing cash in these people's bank accounts so they can spend it freely as they want and stuff like. We are sending them the equivalent of fucking dusty shit off the shelves that we've already invested money in making, and we have no intentions of using. And they're inferior weapons at this point, because our technology has advanced to the point where we're going to reinvest. We're going to take that $50 billion and we're going to fucking invest it in creating $50 billion worth of new weapons here in America. And we're going to send you the shit off the shelf that's been collecting dust, and you can do whatever you want with that. They don't get that. They're never told that. They especially the voter and the supporter of it, they don't get that part of it. They just see dollar signs and all this money going out of the country, and that's money that can stay. Yeah, fuck, it's staying in the country. It's not going out of the country, but they don't get it. No. It's jobs.
No. So, Lori?
Yes.
It's that time.
My final thoughts. Okay.
It's that time. It's that time.
It's that time. It's that time. Okay. Well, my final thoughts are about how the resistance is working. And I personally have joined in with a postcard campaign that tells what the majority of Americans support. 86% of Americans support background checks. 74% of Americans support trans right protections. 70%, that was 74%, 70% safe and legal abortion, and 70% path to citizenship. They're not extreme ideas, they are common ground. That's exactly what my postcard says. And I will be mailing that out on the 1st. They have this is a group that is signsofjustice.com. And for the first 4 months, I believe, and they'll see how it works, we're printing up these on our own dime. We're printing up these postcards and we're sending it to our congressmen and the senators. I encourage everybody to check out this Signs of Justice, because when they get notifications from their constituents, they're going to start listening. This is a peaceful way for us to demonstrate that we are really serious about what's happening in our country. One other thing that's going to be happening is on March 8th. It's a Saturday. Indivisible will be it's a women's march again, and they will be hosting rallies across the country. So if you'd like to get involved, look that up online. I think this is all wonderful ways that you, as a voter and a citizen of the United States, can take part and do something about keeping our democracy.
That was pretty damn good final thought, Lori.
Thank you.
Bravo. Coach, final thought.
Well, to start with, I think what you're doing is commendable, Lori. I think that you're finding an avenue for you to be a participant in, the whole resistance that doesn't tax you, and you're able to kind of live with your movement aspect. So I think that's excellent. I'm happy that you found a way to be a contributor, because I know that you definitely are a resistance fighter. I guess I've always been more of an optimistic minded person when it comes to potential outcomes. And I think that has a lot to do with coaching. I think, I've always been a strategist with coaching, and, I can always figure out what we need to win, even if we're losing. And so I look at a number of different things. And one of the reasons why I pointed out the whole idea of a double impeachment between, impeaching Trump and impeaching Vance, and having the House Speaker become the president, is because that's a real legal scenario, but it would take some doing, and it's one of those things that you can't predict what's happening. But I am kind of optimistic that over the next 18 months, we're going to see more common ground making more common sense, and that's where I think we're going to be at. I think we're going to see a shedding of the MAGA from the majority of the Republicans. They may not shed the party, but they may take back their party. And I think that's where we're going to save America, is going back to a bipartisan thing. Now, what has to happen on the Democratic side is they got to become cutthroat motherfuckers. Recently, I'm not sure if it was today or yesterday, another CEO from the healthcare industry was shot up. His house was shot up. And so if we don't make a positive change and show hope, I think what we're going to see is a French Revolution, where we are taking out the aristocrats, and we're going to take back our government and our country through assassination and truly terrorist rebellion attacks. I don't see any other way. It's either going to be, peaceful with hope, or it's going to be a total war.
We have watched and read and heard about all the firings, the things that are being done to make the government more efficient, to stop the waste and the fraud. Lori mentioned something earlier. Listen, let's forget that they're Democrats and or Republicans. Let's think of them as who they are, Americans. We're in a place right now where we literally have watching people. I don't know what it takes to do this. I love the two of you with all my heart and soul, but if you lie to me, it is because I love you, Coach, that I'm going to tell you, Coach, that's a fucking lie. And I should be able to say that to you, and then you come back and say, okay, what part was a lie? And then we can have a debate about it. But we've watched what's happened in the first, it has 6 weeks. It ain't even been 6 weeks yet. We've watched what's happened. People are losing jobs, benefits, they're losing everything. And the people firing them don't even know who the fuck they are, what they do. It's just a little email, you know. Hey, you ain't worth a damn. Your performance is shit. Playing with people's lives. And I got news for all of you. I don't want to go old school. Okay, I'm trying to be nice. Common sense, common ground. For MAGA, I'm pretty sure. I don't want to say I know this for a fact because I hate when people say that. Okay, I'm pretty damn sure that had Kamala Harris won, and had Elon Musk at her side and picked Pam Bondi or Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, RFK to lead the HHS, I know that the three of us on this show for sure would be asking Kamala, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? If it was Joe, we'd be screaming for the 25th because he just proved this son bitch is senile and dead. Because anybody who doesn't have a problem, look, if you don't have a problem with RFK be leading the HHS, heck said, I'm not going to say Tulsi Gabbard. No. I mean, I could sell you anything. Anything. It is so sad. You know, I've said it before. Of all the bad things I've done in my life, I've always been true to my moral values and principles. God damn it, even if I was committing a crime, I was feeling bad. I had a guy look at me and say, how the fuck are you going to feel bad we're in the middle of a fucking crime. You're going to feel bad now? Hey, just because I'm doing something bad doesn't mean I didn't lose my moral values and principles. Shit, I feel bad. I'm sorry. That people literally have taken what they were taught and what they were raised with. People who went to church, their aunties and uncles and everybody taught you how to be a good boy and a good girl and be respectful. All that shit you've thrown out the window for one guy, one person, one man. And the fact that that doesn't make you think, what the fuck? Just to hear that. So if it's this bad 5 weeks later, I'm going to now finish this with what Coach said. Then we're going to need this shit to get really bad. Really bad. So that maybe, and I said it before in other shows, something's going to have to give. Something big is going to have to happen. I don't even think the collapse of the stock market is going to be enough. Something big's got to happen. And like Coach said, some Republicans are going to have to, because they're out there. They're out there. They say it in private. That's what we hear. They say it in private. Thank you for joining us. This is the NGSC Sports Political Podcast. We call it United, Not Divided, where we meet on common ground. Remember the website, it's ngscsports.com, where you catch all of your current sports content. Sometimes, Coach, I start thinking maybe I should start writing some political stuff. Throw it on the website. I don't know. I'm just thinking maybe an opinion piece or two. I don't know. We got a lot to say, right? Thank you for joining us. We'll be back. I'll be back with the boys on Monday talking baseball. Next week, I got to get with Jordan. We got to talk some NBA. We've got some comments going out the door. Lisa, well said, y'all. Lisa, hey, remember, Lisa, Speak. You got a lot to say, girl. Bring it. Cause I don't know. I don't know. I'm looking at you. I bet you Lisa got a lot to say. Lisa, we'll be back, and I'll look for you, and so I can share the link with you too. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is, of course, again, United, Not Divided, where we meet on common ground. We'll see you guys soon, as I usually say. Peace.